Welcome back to another in our series of the great chapters in the Bible. Our chapter today comes from the New Testament Gospel of Matthew. We'll begin reading in verse 1 of chapter 5. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to those of old, You shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says, You fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. So if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly, I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. You have heard that it was said, You shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go into hell. It was also said, Whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. You have heard that it was said, An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same thing? You therefore must be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect." We hear the term greatest of all time rather a lot, and not a little debate goes into making an argument for their choices. The greatest quarterback, the greatest hitter, the greatest golfer. These are subjective choices using objective statistics. You can compare these statistics. Now, we may say the greatest ice cream or pizza or barbecue sauce is a particular brand based on your taste, or maybe because it sells more than others. But that is rather subjective in and of itself. What some people consider as delicious, I have quite literally spewed out of my mouth. Was it good? Yes, but not to me. I've heard many people declare that in the Gospel of Matthew, chapters 5, 6, and 7, the Sermon on the Mount is the greatest sermon ever. But does it stand up under the scrutiny of objective reasoning? If I laid it beside Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, how would it do? Or maybe Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. Or how about John F. Kennedy's inauguration speech in which he declared, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." On and on we could go. And we could list great speeches like the likes of Winston Churchill or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Nelson Mandela or Barack Obama. Each had great speeches that affected a nation, yes, even a world. And time will tell their lasting effects. Yet, for pure ability to not only change a heart, but to change a civilization, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount was and is and always shall be the greatest of all time, period. We shall consider the first chapter of this monumental sermon in which Jesus indicates where the heart needs to be in attitude within the blessed R's, in aptitude that can be seen by the world as the salt and light, and the altitude of rising above mere words of the law you have heard, and that which is at the very heart of the rule of God within one's heart. But I say, their teachers, the scribes and Pharisees, sought a righteousness that was only surface obedience. But Jesus declared that those listening then and now must be more than just on the surface obedient. They must be obedient to their very soul and spirit. Jesus addressed the heart of the law, not in what you have heard, but deeper to examine what is at the heart of murder and lust and frivolous and flippant attitudes towards divorce, of oaths being not in word, but in your word. As to retaliating, accept those who would take from you and give them more, and that love must rise above whatever the world defines and reach to the very heights of heaven, for that is where true love begins and ends. Yes, in every way, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount exceeds any speech of earthly origins. Those that were there that day realized it. For at the end of the speech, his sermon, in Matthew 7, 28 and 29, and when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowd were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority, and not as their scribes. After all, who was more qualified to teach on the very nature of the mind of God than the one to whom John declared in John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And after all, what is a word but expression of the thought in the mind, the very mind of God? And Lord willing, let's meet again tomorrow and look at another of the great chapters in the Bible.